Everyone, this is Principal Sylvester with part two video of the missing link with PEMDAS. I'm going to start by reviewing last week's lesson. So if you take a look, let's do a quick recap. The missing link part two. Now remember, whenever we are applying PEMDAS, we can't forget that when we are dealing with interchangeable operations, we have to go from left to right. All right. And mainly the interchangeable operations that we learned last time were addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. So we can never forget that you always have to look at those expressions when you go from left to right. Now, last time I gave you a challenge. If you take a look at the challenge, remember to apply PEMDAS, and PEMDAS is our map. PEMDAS is going to let us know what to do first, second, third, fourth, depending on how many parts that expression has. If I take a look at my roadmap, I see that I have subtraction, multiplication, addition, and division. All right, so step number one. Step number one is to identify the variable operations that you see and always start from left to right. So as I get used to doing order of operations, it's good to always write down what is given. Okay. In this scenario, you will start with, from left to right, you will start with the operations that you have in this expression. So if you take a look at it, you have subtraction, multiplication, addition, and division. All right. Once you identify the expressions, the operations that you have in this expression, then you can apply your PEMDAS. My step number two is going to be to actually follow PEMDAS as my roadmap. All right. And if, by using PEMDAS, I know that multiplication is going to be the first operation that I deal with. All right. Followed by division. Then I have subtraction and finally addition. Okay. Since I already started looking at these expressions from left to right, all I have to do is I start working with PEMDAS and see that if I look at the operations that I have, multiplication will come first and then division, followed by subtraction and addition. All right. So again, my multiplication right here is 3 times 2, which gives me 6. And I have 8 divided by 2, which gives me 4. That takes care of the multiplication and division parts. Then I will go again, since addition and subtraction are interchangeable, you do not add first, you have to go from left to right. In this case, I have 10 minus 6, which gives me 4. And then I have plus 4 at the end. So the final answer was 8. How many of you had it right? I'm hoping all of you got it right from the last video, because again, we are focusing on interchangeable operations and moving from left to right. All right. So today we are going to focus on parentheses, which is the P in your PEMDAS. Now, before we do that, we want to know what is a parentheses. Parentheses play a crucial role in mathematics. All right, they're primarily used to indicate the order of operations and to group expressions. Parentheses also have its own operation. Okay, it could also represent multiplication between the values that are inside the parentheses and the value on the outside. All right. Anytime you have a value on the outside of a parentheses, that is called a coefficient or multiplier. All right. The coefficient indicates that you are multiplying that value by whatever you have inside of the parentheses. We are going to expand more on that when we talk about, we will go through multiplication and you have different variables inside of the parentheses. All right. Now remember, the order of operations, parentheses are used to denote which operation should be first. And according to PEMDAS, the parenthesis goes first. And also we use parentheses to group terms or factors together in an expression. All right. So parenthesis is basically a placeholder to let you know what goes first. Now you could have multiple operations within the parentheses. So you could always follow PEMDAS once again. So once you identify the parentheses, you could again follow PEMDAS to see and simplify the expression that's inside of that parentheses. All right. Time for mixed expressions. So now, just like the challenge problem, we are going to see problems that have mixed expressions, and then you're able to apply PEMDAS and simplify them. All right. So whenever you are simplifying a mathematical expression, you must follow PEMDAS. We already established this. And you cannot forget the interchangeable operations, which is addition and subtraction, and then multiplication and division. And when you have those, you have to make sure that you start from left to right. To avoid any confusion, always start reading your expressions from left to right. If you get used to doing that, you are going to avoid the misconception that a lot of people make when using PEMDAS, which is they forget about the interchangeable operations and they do not follow the rules of left to right. All right, so this is an example. 6 divided by 2 times 1 plus 2 within a parentheses. So following PEMDAS, we know that the parenthesis comes first. All right, so we have to do whatever operation we have inside of the parentheses. In this case, we have 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1, that gives us 3. All right, now remember the number 2 on the outside of the parentheses, the coefficient, indicates that I have to multiply the 2 times 3. So that gives me a simplified expression of 6 divided by 2 times 3. Since division and multiplication are interchangeable, I know that I have to go from left to right. So in this case, I know that division comes first before I multiply. So 6 divided by 2 gives me 3, and then 3 times 3 gives me 9. All right, so the simpler version of this example is basically 9. All right, so there's two things that I want you to take away from this. One is that you always have to apply the parentheses first, and two is that the coefficient means that you will multiply that value by whatever is inside of the parentheses. All right. So when we're dealing with mixed expressions, we are going to apply the same skills, the same steps that we did before. Step number 1, you are going to identify the operations from left to right. And step number 2, you are going to simplify the expression by using PEMDAS. So take a look at this example. So step number 1, identify the operations from left to right. So if I look at this expression, I have 12 minus 3 times 4 divided by 2. So I see that I have subtraction, multiplication, and then I have division. All right. So now by using my PEMDAS, I know that multiplication will be the first thing that I will do in this example, followed by division. And last but not least, I will do subtraction. Again, the reason why multiplication is first instead of division is because when you look from left to right, multiplication comes first. The reason why I made this a step number 1 is because you need to see what comes first in your operation. And then following PEMDAS, we know that 12 minus 3 times 4 divided by 2. We know that 3 times 4 is 12. But instead of subtracting 12 by 12, we know that the next operation will be division. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then 12 minus 6 gives me a final answer of 6. All right, let's not forget that whenever you are dealing with interchangeable operations like addition and subtraction or multiplication and division, left to right is key. Now, I know I'm saying this time and time again, is because it's very important that we do not forget that. All right, now it's time for you to work on your own. There are 4 different examples. All right, don't forget step number 1 is look at the expression from left to right, identify the operations that you're dealing with, and then follow PEMDAS to see which one will go first, second, third. All right, you want to use PEMDAS to follow the order. All right, so pause the video, work this problem independently, and then we are going to review them in a minute. All right. Now, looking at the different problems, we see that the first problem, we have a parenthesis. We did not actually go within the parentheses and look at what is happening there. All right, we identify that that is a whole parentheses. We do not care about what is happening inside of the parentheses. Then we have multiplication, then we have addition. All right. The other problems, you have division, addition, and multiplication. This problem, you have addition, division, parentheses. This problem, you have multiplication, parentheses, subtraction. Once you identify the different operations, then your step number 2 is to add PEMDAS and follow the order of operation. All right. So if you look at the first one, parentheses comes first. Once you know that you have to deal with the parentheses, then you can actually look at the operations inside of it. So inside of this, we have 4 minus 2. We do not care about what is happening outside of the parentheses until we figure this out. So we know that 4 minus 2 gives me 2. Once this is completed, the parenthesis simply vanishes. It disappears. And now I will follow my order of operations. I know that I will have to multiply next. So 2 times 3 gives me 6. And then 6 plus 6 gives me 12. Okay. Now the second one. The second one, we know that we had division, addition, and multiplication. We know that if you look at the division and the multiplication, you will do the one that goes from left to right first. So I have 15 divided by 3, which gives me 5. Then I have 5 plus 2 times 4. We know that multiplication comes before addition. Therefore, 2 times 4 gives me 8. And finally, 8 plus 5 gives me 13. Okay? The last two. I know that I have here, if I look at the operations that I have, when I look at it from left to right, I have addition, division, parentheses. Okay. And according to PEMDAS, I know that I have to deal with the parentheses first. Okay. So now, if you notice, there's nothing outside of the parentheses. Whenever you have a blank, all right, whenever you have the coefficient is not there, that is always replaced by the number 1. All right. So I will do the parentheses. 2 times 2 is 4. It doesn't matter when you multiply any value by 1, you still get the value itself. That's why the 4 is here by itself. I don't want you to think that if you don't have a number outside of the parentheses, that it becomes 0, because that's going to throw you off. So the coefficient, when it's not present, it will always be 1. All right. Now all I have to worry about is addition and division, which we know that division is coming before addition. Therefore, 4 divided by 4 gives me 1, and 7 plus 1 equals to 8. All right. And last but not least, we know that we have to do the parentheses first. So we have 4 plus 2 gives me 6. And we know that the coefficient in this example is 3. And we know that that means that we have to multiply the coefficient by whatever the total is, or whatever we get inside the parentheses. So I have 3 times 6 minus 5. We know multiplications come before subtraction. Therefore, 3 times 6 is 18. And 18 minus 5 gives me 13. All right. So again, the reason we are getting steps is so you know exactly where you need additional help or additional support in. So we know in this case, we're only doing 2 steps. Step number 1, identify the different operations by looking at the expressions from left to right. Step number 2, apply PEMDAS to know the order that you are going to complete those operations. All right. If you have any more questions, don't forget to rewind, pause the video, and look at where you are having confusion. All right. Also, you can post any questions in the comments, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, the next video that we are going to have is going to be breaking down exponents. So we're going to have a detailed explanation of exponents. But before we leave, I'm going to leave you with a challenge for next video. All right. The challenge right here, look, I'm not even going to say the expression, because by now you should know how to say this expression out loud, how to identify the different operations, and how to apply PEMDAS. All right. So good luck with the challenge, and I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this video is being helpful, and have a great day.